Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk about labels, about whether or not people have the authority to decide who is and who is not a label or a particular thing, whether or not you can do it in practice, or whether or not you should do it in practice. Now, it's a very nuanced topic. There's no right or wrong answer. I myself believe in most cases you can actually tell people who is and who is not a particular thing or a label or part of a community or a demographic. I think in some cases you can, providing you can prove it beyond reasonable doubt and you have evidence to back up your claim, be it through the use of a particular ideology's tenets, things that everybody agrees with consensus. Maybe this person breaks with one, a few, or all of these tenets, or doesn't have physical characteristics or mental characteristics that shows that they are part of a particular group. Now, I'm of course going to start with the bad things that I disagree with, the things that I think people should not do when they're tackling things like this. Now, usually people will say things like, oh, such and such is not a thing. They're not a true thing. They're not a true feminist, they're not a true MRA. They're not a true anything because they're using a no true Scotsman fallacy because either they believe in either all or part or a little bit of what this other group of people or individual happens to believe in, and when someone calls them out over it or calls out their ideology over it, they say, oh no, they're not true people because true people believe things that we believe in, usually what the individual believes in. They project their own thoughts and opinions onto everybody else, or at least everybody else that isn't the out group that's being criticised or being talked about. You see it all the time. You see feminists talk about how the radical feminists are not true feminists because, oh, they're TERFs or they're SWERFs or they hate men or they don't care about men, even though there's a lot of overlap between the mainstream and the radical feminists in general. They'll still try and do this. And you see other people doing it, the alt-right will say, hey, they're not real conservatives, they're cook conservatives because they believe this, that and the other. And really, it just gets really annoying because who are they to decide who is and who is not this particular ideology? Because if you all believe in the core beliefs of this particular thing, I mean, you also get it in religions as well. Let's not forget Islam in particular, Christianity as well. These people always fall back on this as some kind of defense mechanism because they're getting criticised and they need someone to blame or to pass it on to, or to try and say, oh no, they're not true things because they're violent, even if, especially in the case of religion, they're actually following it more to the letter than the person doing the no true Scotsman fallacy. I don't think people have the right to do that there because these people obviously are the ideology or religion that they're being told that they're not, because they believe in either more things or certain things that overlap with the other person, and it's just a cop-out from the other person, and I think they should stop doing that. And I think this comes from a place of arrogance, which is my next point. Sometimes this comes from, as I said, a place of arrogance where a person has an overinflated ego, mainly through maybe popularity or maybe no popularity at all, but thinks that they're somehow amazing and really distinguished and can discern who is and who is not a thing because they themselves can do it. They have anointed themselves as the pope of a particular ideology so that they can tell other people who is and who is not. Usually it's people they don't like. And I saw this on Twitter with some MRAs. They were doing it. They were arguing over who is and who is not an MRA because they've been disagreeing on some things recently over the last couple of months. And as far as I'm aware, they have no right to go around telling other people, especially other MRAs that have been doing it longer than them, that they are not MRAs just because one person said they're no longer an MRA, but they still technically are because they're doing the activism and they're advocating as well. These young upstarts are claiming that these older ones are not MRAs because they disagree over one thing, which is almost a different argument altogether in many ways. Although it isn't at the same time because it also touches on men's rights. But whatever, let's get into some field that we all know and love very well. The point is, these people cannot tell those other people that they are not particular things. They don't have the authority to do so. This is a leaderless movement for the most part. Sure, there are leading figures, but they're not the arbiters and never have claimed to be the arbiters. So anyone, in theory, can be this if they believe in the core tenets, advocating for men's rights in any shape or form. You don't necessarily have to be a troop on the ground in order to do something about that. You can just raise awareness through videos, or maybe telling people where to go if they want to learn more stuff. That's still advocating or talking about it to people. But because this one group didn't do a particular thing, therefore they're not MRAs, and one person who was associated with them said they weren't anymore, therefore the whole group isn't. Ridiculous, isn't it, people? It comes from a place of arrogance. It comes from a place of, I know more because I'm a certain thing. Look at me, aren't I the messiah of the men's rights movement? Hear me roar. I know who is and who is not. I am the arbiter of truth. Tell me more. Now, sometimes it's more of an innocent thing, or maybe more of an ignorant thing. It could be willfully ignorant or just totally, utterly, accidentally ignorant. They can believe somebody is a certain thing, even though they're not, because they either have a preconceived notion or they've been given the wrong facts. For example, a lot of people, either on the left or the right, will call one or the other a communist or a fascist, even though it's quite clear that none of the two opposing sides actually are. This is because both sides don't really know what a fascist or a communist actually is. They've been told what it is through someone's preconceived notion of it or some kind of propaganda, so they go and fling it like dirt. It's like an insult. It's kind of like a smearing tactic, and this is what this thing can be used like, oh, you're a such and such, you're such and such that, and all it does is just poison the well. The argument goes nowhere and no debate is had, because it just ends up being a shit flinging match. People need to rise above the petty name calling, need to actually settle down, relax, and debate the ideas, and just, accept the person for who they are. When the person says they're conservative or a liberal, chances are they're probably telling the truth. Not everybody's doing takia, y'all. So I guess what it boils down to is this thing can, in its worst elements, is cause paranoia, make people arrogant, make people think they have power when they don't, and it can be used as a smear tactic, and I think that's just wrong. And now let's talk about the good points. Now, in my opinion, and some people might disagree, there's not many good points to this, but I think when it comes to communities, I think specifically demographics, like, who is and who's not black or white or mixed race or even trans, which is a whole other kettle of fish, I think you can, within reasonable doubt, with evidence, prove that somebody is or is not a thing. Now, one can actually prove that somebody is and is not a particular race or an ethnicity, because one, we have DNA testing. Sometimes you just have to look at the person, sometimes, and you can easily discern who they are. And this is why it's easy to point out that people like Rachel Dolezal and Sean King are complete and utter con artists. They're people who are claiming to be either mixed race in Sean King's case or transracial, as Rachel claims, because even though race itself is a murky concept, you can't actually be transracial, because she's also kind of conflating it with culture. Therefore she's saying she's transcultural when she's not. You see what I mean, people? You can actually discern whether or not these people actually are black or white, because one, we can give them a DNA test, we know who their parents are, and they're all white. So we can pretty much be very clear that these people are actually white people pretending to be black. And then we get into transgender people and transgender people. Now, what is the difference? Well, it's hard to discern, because sometimes it's hard to tell who is and who is not, because some people pass well, some people don't, some people are androgynous. But basically, from what I can gather from my trans mates, usually it tends to be people who are non-binary, genderqueer, agender, you know all the usual 76 gender stuff, rather than what they actually are, which is men and women. An actual transgender person is someone who transitions from one to the other. Remember, science has proven beyond a reasonable doubt for the last several thousand years that the binary does exist. There is no non-binary thing. But then, do these people actually have issues that need to be addressed? Do they actually have gender dysphoria, or I think dysmorphia also exists? I could be wrong. Well, who knows? Some of these people, it has been shown, do go through slight identity crisis phases. For example, the Dice Scum Girl. Well, other people have genuine psychological, physical issues. Some of it might not necessarily be dysphoria, but things that can be addressed just through therapy or some tablet taking, and they might have a hormone imbalance. But these people aren't necessarily trans. People like Frozen Binary, people like Equal Rights Advocate, etc., they're trans. They actually have gender dysphoria. But people like Milo Stewart and Riley Dennis, or Justin Dennis as he used to be called, they're not trans. Especially Riley Dennis, who, by the way, only found out they were trans in college. He has no real desire to transition as far as I'm aware. He just wants to wear women's clothes. Milo was claimed to have some drug taking to make her some kind of weird androgynous thing. She'll have some testosterone to make her look more manly, but also kind of feminine. But then again, she could be trolling. She is a well-known troll. But these people have been proven beyond reasonable doubt to be trenders because, one, we watch their videos, we hear what they have to say about themselves, and what they have to say is not what trans people would actually say in real life. A real trans person would not say, oh yeah, I want to confuse people with what I am. No, that's something that an androgynous tomboy or an effeminate man or just someone who likes to gender bend would do. A trans person wants to be either male or female from whatever they are currently because that's what they feel mentally inside, rather than just something that they want to mess about with. Anyway, people, I feel like I've rambled long enough. I did do an original take of this, which was quite shorter than this, but I had audio issues, so it's all fixed now. So this has been Charmy93. Like, share the video, subscribe to my channel, give me your opinions in the box down below. There is no right or wrong answer with this, so until next time, see you later.